can
I'm
do
here.
this.
I am here.
I would actually like to ask a question because this is not something I was anticipating. Because if you have to multi-class, which it looks like just about all of us are going to be multi-classing, what stuff do you not get from the class you multi-class into? Would you not get their starting skills and such?
All right. So do you have the DMG, the player's handbook in front of you?
I can.
Or I can just link you the Beyond document. Go to the section right after feats where it says multi-classing.
Okay.
The rules are actually pretty straightforward in 5e.
Yeah, we can go over all those once you guys are ready to level up to level 2 with your starting character. So I've been asked, like, what happens in this world after you die? So, essentially, it's pure Tolkien. It's exactly... So in the history of Tolkien, so-and-so God made, like, the elves and the dwarves, and theirs was the dominion of the earth. But then he made man. And man was not meant to be spiritually bound to the earth. When man dies, man ascends to another plane of existence. That's exactly what the Aetherine Church believe. If you live in terms of... they have like 13 holy edicts. If you live your life in accordance to these edicts, upon death, you will ascend to Ayer's Hall. Very straightforward stuff. But no other beings in the world, whether they be like ancient elves or modern animals or monsters, have that same ability. It's something that is unique to man. The human soul is unique to your characters on this world. Or the church could excommunicate you, and then your soul just evaporates when you die and doesn't go anywhere.
So how does the church feel about all those spells when you talk to the dead? How do they explain that?
Depends on the situation, I guess.
How do they feel about the spell not raise dead, animate dead?
It depends on the situation.
So you just start raising skeletons up to do your bidding.
I mean, a possible explanation could be that there's just some ancient house that has been doing this for centuries and has just squared it with the church a long time ago, and
all of our skeletons are, and they use air quotes, volunteers.
Right.
They sign a contract and everything. Oh, that's such a good idea. Can we change archaeology to that?
Too late.
Damn.
It's like, but I want a skeleton butler.
Oh.
So we've named your province. We've codified the rabbits are a problem. You all are carrying a magnifying glass in some capacity as your house relic.
So, I know I'm going to regret saying this, but the opponents of our house make jokes about why we have a magnifying glass.
Of course they do. It's because of your tiny, tiny penises.
Exactly.
I thought that was just a given. All right, let's talk about... Do we have McDohl back? I haven't heard him for a minute.
Oh, I was muted. I'm sorry. Hello, I'm here. It is.
Welcome back.
I had responded when you asked earlier. I apologize. I am is.
You are is. Good. Good to know. So let's flesh out a little bit of your family tree. So the most important member of your family tree is the current governor of South Warren, who was just elected. So let's start there. Who was that?
Would it be the patriarch of the family?
Or
would it be some... Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be.
No.
I think it should be a matriarch.
Yeah.
That could be too.
We do things differently in our house.
The church has no official stance on matriarchy versus patriarchy. There is no preferred heir, so to speak. Essentially, if you have an inheritance to pass on, you name your heir. Usually it's your firstborn, but it doesn't have to be. And traditions can vary from province to province. It would make her the governess, though, not the governor.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Why not? How about the Well, yeah, no, that's fine. It's
Okay.
easy. We could just roll that into one character. That's fine.
Does she have a spouse? Is she married?
Yes. He's just a big old fop. He's the Ponce part 2.
So, the way that holding titles like that would work in this society is being married to the governor does not make you the governess. Think of more like a British monarchy sense. They don't have a king and a queen. They have whoever the royal monarch is, then they have a consort who has no official standing in government. So the governess is in charge of the province. She's married to just a big old fop. And then who is her heir? Like if
A
she,
wheedling little boy.
like how young?
12, 13.
I mean, are we just rolling up Lisa Aaron at this point? So those are 3 characters that none of you are allowed to play. The governess, her fop spouse, or her young heir. And then she would have chosen someone from your house to go to Brennanine and represent the house as speaker. So who is that person?
That can't be someone who is related to us.
Well, you're all going to be related by blood.
Well, I mean, like,
Is that the speaker is another thing we can't be? Is
Yeah,
what
you
you're
can't.
saying-
You
is what you're
can't be the
saying.
speaker. You could be the speaker's son in this campaign if you wanted. Or
What if
speaker's
what if the
wife.
speaker was our dungeon delving, ruin exploring, adventuring uncle, who got famous because he found some giant ruin site?
How is he related to the governess?
Brother.
First cousins.
First cousins.
First cousin?
Yeah, cousins work.
So they share a grandparent.
I'm happy to just go through Fantasy Name Generator and give all these people names later.
Sure.
Unless you guys have.
No.
Okay. So the current speaker, he was like a ruin delving explorer in his youth, or is it something that he still does?
I think he still does it. He's my inspiration.
Like he's
How old do you think he is?
he's like I don't know, late 50s.
He's
Okay.
probably retired from field duty, but still is able to.
He just
do those
randomly
things.
shows up.
Yeah,
on
he just randomly
expeditions.
leaves his duties. He puts someone else in charge, but he's known for occasionally
It's like
putting his daughter in charge, ducking out, and being at an adventure site for a couple of weeks.
So to be
It's
clear,
like-
at least in the outset of the campaign, the governess and her family are not going to be NPCs you're going to be interacting with a lot, whereas the speaker and his family probably will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like
So
maybe
the-
like
does the speaker have a spouse? Is he married?
I don't know.
Widower.
Make him a widower. Yeah, make that simple.
Who is his heir? If he dies tomorrow, who's the new speaker?
His what Destil said, his eldest daughter.
How old is she?
Like 23.
Does she have a spouse? Does she have a family?
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Does she have children?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. So
And she probably has like half a dozen younger siblings.
why would the governess pick somebody from your family that is known for disappearing on excursions for long lengths of time and leaving his duties in the lap of his daughter?
Because what he comes back with from the excursions makes it worthwhile.
Actually, she mostly wants the daughter to run the show. She thinks he's a little irresponsible for it, but
she's using the dad's name to give the daughter legitimacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be proper to name the younger daughter heir or name the younger daughter speaker when her father is still alive and is still in good standing.
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like he's in bad standing. It's just like she's completely okay with him being out of there and her daughter actually running the show because she kind of prefers that.
Is
And
the
yeah, and I-
speaker in on this
Yeah,
collusion? Like
Yeah.
he's okay.
Oh yeah.
like he encourages it. I imagine like he doesn't want to be behind a desk. He wants to die in the field.
So
Yeah,
the
he would
daughter-
rather be poor.
the speaker's daughter, she's born and bred to be a politician. Like that is her.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so she's coming into this with the intention of our family has this power now, and we're gonna hold it as long as I'm alive in Brennan.
Yep. No. Yeah. That's exactly why they wanted someone very, very good and very young to take this position because they're hoping to ride this, to start a multi-generational legacy.
Okay.
And like they used the adventuring dad. They used him because he knows everybody, and he goes to all the parties and.
Well, he'd be well known because he's
Right, yeah,
bridged back
he's
all the-
basically a folk hero.
Okay.
Like
I mean, that could be his background.
they write steamy romance novels about him, kind of character, you know? Like they have like you'll go to like a store and there'll be like a paperback with him, like some fictionalized version of him holding some.
I don't know the source material at all because I've never seen the show, but I've been playing the Nick Brawl game, and I'm just in my head. This guy is Nigel Thornberry.
I think a very muscular Nigel Thornberry. Yes, that is exactly what I was thinking.
Can we get Tim Curry to voice him? No, we can't because don't have the budget for it.
Oh, by the way, I don't have any budget for voice acting this whole campaign, so none of you are allowed to talk. We'll have to just, like, some modder will just mod in the voice clips from previous campaigns. It'll be fine. All right, so the next thing we have to determine is how you guys are related. So the easiest way to do this would just be that you're all members of the speaker's household. He's expected to like pack up his house and home, travel to Brennanine, and establish himself here. But I'm not going to hold you. You don't have to be if you don't want to. You can be members of any branch of the house coming along for whatever reasons. You can be as old or as young as you want, as connected or as disconnected from the family as you want. All I'm going to require is that you do have some connection to each other in some capacity. Otherwise, we can't play a game with these characters.
So, at least for my character, the speaker is his uncle because his father died, so he's been living with his uncle. And so when his uncle got elected speaker, he had to go with him.
Are you the speaker's niece or nephew?
Nephew.
So your mother or father was the speaker's sibling, and they died.
Yeah, so my character's father was the speaker's brother.
Okay.
But then my father died in a exploring accident.
So you were raised in the speaker's household. So the person who is acting speaker, this politician lady, she's essentially your sister.
Yeah, I guess that'd be what it is.
Okay. And you look up to him because of his adventuring prowess.
Yes.
All right. And what about the rest of you guys?
I kind of like the idea that maybe we like all brothers and sisters.
You can be, but everybody has to sign off on that.
So I was thinking what I would like for my character would be to be like a first cousin of the rest of the characters if they're all siblings who's from a different branch of the house that he doesn't really get along very well with and is effectively almost like an adopted son of that branch of the family.
Oh,
Okay.
Alex again.
It's like our adopted brother.
No, it's not. This character is very different from Alex, believe me.
Except that his name is Alex, and he's very
No.
and he wears a hat and smokes a pipe. Other than that, totally different.
Does he have a robot badger?
He does.
I wish.
Okay, so there's a smaller branch that is still House Veritas, but they're kind of ostracized from the main house for whatever reason.
Oh no, they're in really good standing. I'm in bad standing with just my own house, basically, like my own household.
Your own household, okay.
Yeah, I don't fit in with my old household. I don't feel like I really fit in with these guys either, but it's worked better for me so far.
So you've kind of got, the election went down, and you got the news that old Uncle Nigel is going to be traveling to Brennanine, and you're like, you know what, this is my shot to get out of...
Yeah.
Okay, get out of South Warren, establish myself as an exciting big town.
So what would that? Let's see. If I'm cousins, that would make him my cousins twice removed?
It gets really complicated really quickly, doesn't it? I guess I should ask, like, how... so, Chris, your character is going to be around, like, early 20s? Like the speaker's heir is, around that same age?
Yeah, also like 22.
And Destil, your character age, about the same age, older or younger?
No, my character is an incredibly idealistic 15-year-old.
Okay.
Like crap. Also, petition to make Nigel his actual name.
Yes, please.
Okay. speaker, Nigel Veritas.
My character's name is Ekon.
What differentiates you from the rest of your house? Like, why are you kind of on the... I'm assuming you mean, like, your parents and your siblings.
Yeah.
Okay.
He is a bit... his head of the household is largely, like, maybe the more spiritual branch, and he does not agree with some of their interpretations of canon. Like, because we're all working towards the same monotheistic religion of, like, finding knowledge and whatnot. He thinks that they're maybe a little bit more closed-minded about it than they should be.
Okay.
Like, he's the type who would probably do something stupid, like reveal an artifact that should not be revealed to the public because he believes
Nail
it
95
better
theses to the wall.
better follows the actual teachings of the church.
And so one of your parents is the speaker's cousin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, no, one of my parents would be the speaker's brother, right? If we're cousins, yeah.
Okay. And has anybody else given this part of it any thought?
So I'm a
guess-
nephew.
I don't know. I'm still thinking.
Oh no, you're right. One of my parents would be their cousin that way. Because he's your uncle, he's not your father. Yeah.
Am I gonna have to try to flumphize like Nigel Thornberry, like place his face onto a heel slime for the banner? The wild flumpberries. I know nothing about the show. I've just been playing this game for a week now.
I think they have like the super RV or something like that. Maybe he has some kind of like amazing travel wagon.
They have an adopted Tarzan child and a monkey.
Yeah, that's weird. None of you can be the adopted Tarzan child because you must be related by blood, otherwise you don't have house magic.
Anybody want to be twins?
How old do you want to be?
I don't know. 17, 18? You want to be girl twins or boy twins? Or mixed?
Oh, I was gonna play a woman.
Please be
I'll play,
identical.
I'll play a woman too.
So we have a pair of twins?
Yeah.
Who's twins?
I mean, I guess the speakers. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
we could be the young the daughter who's running things. We're like the annoying younger siblings.
Okay.
We were not given power because we're too young, and maybe I don't know how we feel about that could vary.
Well, like I said, I kind of picture the speakers having like half a dozen kids, right?
Sure.
Like, does everyone think that's good?
So you guys are 18, 19 years old?
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. What's age of majority?
There probably isn't like an official church stance on that. It's something that probably varies from province to province. I mean, I could go as young as 15 on that. Probably okay.
Hey, Destil. How
Yeah.
old is your character?
15.
How would you feel about an older brother who the parents send to please just keep it, just keep an eye on him and don't let him, blaspheme against the church and get us all excommunicated, kind of a deal.
I don't think that's a problem. Does anyone else think that's a problem?
If you have to ask that question, it's probably going to be a problem.
No, I just thought everybody else wanted to be like direct members of that household, but
So, McDohl, you're looking to be Destil's older brother whose job is to try to keep him in line.
Yeah.
Okay. And how old is your character?
Let's say about 4 years his senior.
So you're pretty
Not
young.
quite
You're about,
first-
you're about 19.
Yeah, not quite firstborn, but also
Are any of you
The older.
married or have your own children?
no.
We all sound too young for that.
No, you're not. The youngest of you is
No, you're
15, and I've read Game of Thrones.
oh, we're going book Game of Thrones, not show Game of Thrones. No.
Okay. So none of you are the head of your own household. None of you have established your own household yet. In fact, this might be a sticking point if Destil and McDohl's parents are kind of more traditionalists. Especially if McDohl, if you're the eldest child of your household.
Not,
So we have to
not
fight off
like,
the suitors.
like third or fourth born, maybe.
Okay. All right.
Does that make Destil the baby?
So
Maybe a little
Destil.
bit.
So, okay, so yeah, you've all grown up in the Speaker's household back in South Warren. And then the governess was elected, and she chose Nigel. Yeah, to go act as Speaker. He's leaving with all of his children, including his 2 young twins, his heir, who's his eldest daughter, and his nephew, who he raised. So, Destil McDohl, like, how close was your household with Nigel's household before he left for Brennan?
Not distant. I mean, I think it was a natural choice for me to go with this group. But like, if there had been multiple groups leaving at once, I think this is probably the one that's closest. Like, not necessarily super close, but I think there's, not a lot of, like, it's not like there has traditionally been a lot of tension or anything. Just like,
So
like they're the cousins that but like hang out with once or twice a year and but don't necessarily have a super close relationship with.
Fair enough. So what has happened is Nigel will pack his household up. He's expected to take his entire house with him, including his heir. The idea being that he's going to establish the family in Brennan, and then his children will inherit whatever he builds there. And then other members of House Veritas will come along kind of either at their discretion or some people that Nigel is close to. And then, of course, each of these nobles are going to have their own entourage of attendants and servants. So probably you've got a party of a good 50 or 60 people traveling to Brennan. You're going to establish a manor here. Are there any other notable family members you guys think we should be bringing along? Or are we going to leave that to my purview?
What about like a nanny or something like that? Someone who's like actually running the place, because apparently the father is always running off, doing whatever he wants. The Speaker Nigel it sounds very irresponsible. He probably didn't keep close track of his children. So I'm thinking maybe he had like a governance in the other sense, someone who like raised his children for him.
Okay.
Oh no. I have a name for this, and hold on. I forgot her name. What was our secretary's name?
Linda?
Linda.
Yeah, Linda.
Like
Linda
it.
Esterhoff.
So probably not someone who's a blood member of the family, but someone who has an enormous amount of influence over the children.
So a strict nanny has come along who's whooped your ass.
Oh, yeah.
Children. And so her job is like, she's kind of just in charge of like the day-to-day running of the house once it gets established.
Yeah, something like that. And the children are like, they're not little kids anymore, so they just need constant supervision, but
Well, some of them
she's
are.
still...
I feel like there's like 12 children, like ranging from like 3 to 23.
Yeah.
So he's relatively recently widowed then, if his youngest child is only 3.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, it's been about 2
he
years.
slept around a lot and just...
Both.
That seems likely.
None of us have the same mother.
That's
Well,
actually,
2 of us do.
That's actually probably very unlikely. I mean, bastard children are related by blood, but they're not necessarily a member of the house.
Right.
So if he does have a bunch of bastard children by different mothers and has just recognized all of them, he's doing it outside the purview of the church already. It's not saying you can't do it and you can't all have different mothers. Just if that's the case, there's already going to be friction with some members. It's something other houses might use against you.
I mean, like, just recently widows is fine.
Okay.
Maybe the youngest child is why she died. She died in childbirth.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because he kept pumping children into her, and her body just gave out after 12.
And then after that happened, he kind of redoubled his wanderlusts and really started neglecting some duties at home. And that's why the governess feels maybe a change of scenery and refocusing his energies might be good for him and his household. With the benefit of once he dies out in the field somewhere, his responsible daughter will take over for him. All right.
Yep.
Who is the house that you supplanted in South Warren? These are going to be people that already have a strong presence in Brennanine, because they will have been acting speaker for your province for at least 6 years, and realistically much longer than that.
I have an answer for this.
Uh-huh.
I have the best answer for this. House Hobnobber.
What about Dick Ass or whatever it was?
Dill ass.
Should this be the house that has the sanctioned undead that we realized too late we wanted?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Oh yeah.
So
You
they're
sabotage
necromantic
them?
specialists?
Yep.
And one of the reasons that we got really upset with them is because they keep pillaging the dead bodies in the ruins before we can get a chance to study them.
It belongs in a museum. No, it belongs in our farm field. Go away.
What's their house name?
We can't use Hobnobber.
Do you want to?
Not. That doesn't sound like a house hobnobber
How
activity.
about
no.
Inorti?
Spell that?
Inmortui. I just did Latin for undead.
What about Latin for death?
It's just Mori, right?
Yeah, it's
Marte or something.
Morte.
All right.
We want to be as on the nose and easy to pronounce as possible.
So the next question, if they're necromantic specialists, how do they monetize that? Why is the house so wealthy and profitable if they're necromantic specialists?
Free labor.
Free
They
labor. Well,
lease
it's not
it out.
free labor, but
They lease
yeah.
out they lease out the labor. Easy
Would that
peasy.
be would the church have opinions on that?
Possibly.
I mean, I imagine they've paid off the church, and they.
This
Whoa.
church doesn't sound like the kind of people you can pay off.
So one of the church edicts essentially outlaws slavery of any kind. So the idea of resurrecting dead bodies and selling them off as cheap labor is probably so it's possible this is something this house used to engage in a couple hundred years ago.
Like a loophole.
But when the church came and said there's some traditions you guys are going to have to give up if we're going to build a cathedral, could be one of the things that had to go.
It is, but because we are out in the Badlands, they still do it just kind of on the downside. And that's one of the reasons they get their money is because people are willing to pay large sums of money for the free labor.
Is that something that would be like? Because that seems like to me like because you said that like the souls ascend when they die, so they're just empty husks.
Right.
Yeah.
So way out in the province, like on the borders of the Badlands, it's probably something they can still get away with, and just they unofficially just deny every time it comes up, and nobody can stick it to them. Probably
Could
because
they?
every house in the province is benefiting from this free labor.
Maybe
Well,
they were the ones who blew the
Is
whistle
it
on them.
is it something they could get away with if they did? Like these are people that like. Is it still slavery if you, like maybe indentured servitude? You know, is indentured servitude illegal?
Yes, and actually the punishment, if the church finds out you've done it, is to make you the servant of the person you were subjugating.
Okay.
For
Like so what I'm saying is you can't sign a contract and say that like upon the like you give me 1,000 gold and on the termination of my life you can use my body for X number of years.
You can, but there are strict rules within the church to ensure that contract is signed freely. The concept of free will is something that's very important to the Church of the
Well, I mean,
That's why they do that.
Yeah, I mean, they would have a long time to kind of get this right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, like,
So
I
this-
think
this
that's
kind of
something
thing-
that
This is a practice they would engage with out in the mountains, but it's not something they're going to get away with in the streets of Brennanine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that they've tended to the mountains. And they do both types. They advertise that it's all by free will and by choice, but not all of it really is.
Okay.
Do they have a front here in Brennanine? Like, do they have some other legitimate business that they're presenting themselves as doing instead of that?
Oh, they must, yes. I'm going to
What
assume
can-
if they're necromantic specialists, they also have methods that connect to like healing, regrowing limbs, balming poisons, and that kind of thing.
But our house knows the truth about them because we're from the same place they are at.
I would assume it's an open secret. I would assume that anybody who knows their house would know what they're really up to, and it's not something you speak about in polite company.
Yeah, it's also one of those things that everybody in the province benefits from, so no one's really gonna risk ruining it.
And it's also very likely your house has a similar open secret. Like, everybody knows that, yeah, you say you're all about finding and sharing the truth, but everybody knows you got a closet with some unseelie horse shit back home. Who is the speaker of House Inmotai?
His name is Lucas.
Well, the ex-speaker. Lucas?
He was really old, cantankerous man.
Yes. Frail.
So Lucas's house, his household here in Brennanine, has been established for a very long time. Your province has been ruled by governors from this house probably for a generation or two. So when you get to Brennanine, like, they're the ones that are going to have the very nice house. They're the ones that most citizens of Brennanine would associate with hearing your province. And it's going to be a fairly major upset when your people come in and supplant theirs, because they're not.
Do we get their house?
No, you don't.
Damn it.
They have their house. You guys, one of the early kind of adventures we're going to work through is establishing your actual manor here in Brennanine. They also probably have lands that give them incomes outside of Brennanine, beyond the boundaries of the lake, which is something you guys also might have to look into. All right, with that information, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a family tree going back maybe 2 or 3 generations, just enough to populate with fantasy name generators. But the important characters of your house are going to be the speaker, his daughter, some of his other children, and the strict nanny that runs your household. Okay.
Really want to see what the spell Vampiric Itch does.
What does it sound like it does?
Sounds like an STD.
A little bit, yeah.
Like a fantasy STD.
Do anybody have any ideas or suggestions for who the other major houses in Brennanine are? The great houses of Brennanine would be the ones who are elected to speaker.
How many of them are there?
There could be any number, really. I mean, I wouldn't want to go lower than 7 or 8, but I wouldn't want to go more than maybe 14 or 15, because each one of these is going to be a sizable province in the country.
I would suggest one of them is the House of the Stars. Celestial magic, light, that kind of stuff.
Okay. The only house that I have in my rules here, in my notes, the largest house who governs the province of Grand Fernisco, where Brennanine sits, is House Oleander. And House Oleander is very, very twined up with the church, and they have been governor of the province for over a century at this point. They're very well ingrained. What is House Oleander's magical purview? What is their theme?
They're the largest, I think. That
The sun.
the sun, yeah.
How does that difference from the House of the Stars and celestial magic?
Boy, that's a lot of bullshit that goes back and forth between theologians, isn't it?
Fair enough. Any other great houses? This is all stuff I'm going to populate later anyway. I'm just kind of taking suggestions.
Maybe like a major commerce house, and maybe a major
Sort of environmental house, like a bunch of druids.
I'm thinking a house that's like the strong right hand of the church, and they're all paladins or war clerics.
In practice, that would be House Oleander.
Okay, so they exist.
What about like
At
a
the
house?
at the start of this timeline, there's 3 important people that kind of run Brennanine: the head of the church, the head of the merchants class, and then the grand speaker. who would be the speaker of Grand Fernisco, who's always of House Oleander. And right now, the High Aethar of the church and the High Speaker are both of House Oleander. And I haven't decided who the third one is yet. You guys pretend to be a republic, but in practice, House Oleander runs things.
Okay.
Maybe a house that rose to prominence because it is really, or at least it was at one point really good at inventing things. Maybe they're the major source of all the artificer nonsense that has become, you said, was pretty prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
Shipwrights.
The House of the Gear.
House of the Gear.
Yeah, a house of shipwrights is probably
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just going by their big theme.
Yeah, no, I basically I just can't think of anything like that, but
So let's go down that list again real quick. Let's pick two of these houses for House Veritas to already have like an existing alliance with. Two houses that they work well with.
House Oleander.
I don't know. I think that like our purview, like of the thing listed, it would be the artificers and the shipwrights, just because we go places and we do things and we use tools in that situation.
Yeah, the other issue is that because we seek out and find ruins and find all these artifacts, if we're giving a large number of them to the church, then that would make sense for us to be allies with Oleander, whoever the big house that runs things is.
But are we really doing that?
You mean, are we really giving a lot of our stuff to the church?
Lucius
think
did
we
that in the
probably-
last campaign. I don't think that there was ever a problem with it, so I'm sure it's fine.
We have to be giving them some stuff, otherwise we wouldn't be in a position where we could accumulate power.
Don't
I
need a
think we
freaking
probably
luck blade.
think
What
we're
are you
giving
talking
them
about?
stuff.
Oh, well, I think our characters think we're giving them everything. But in reality, maybe like
Well, yeah,
half of that's
obviously.
going to
I mean, I don't know if that would necessarily make us, because that seems like the kind of thing that is considered just their due, so they're not going to give it any special consideration. You know, the church expects this to be done, right? So why would they reward us for doing what is expected of us?
If you guys tell me that House Oleander are some of your big allies, I'm perfectly fine with that. I bet your house standing with the church is entirely up to you. Because, yeah, you're right. It is kind of expected. When people discover things, you're supposed to turn the knowledge over to the church, and then agents of the church would decide whether that knowledge is proper for mass consumption or not. But you guys should be exceptionally good. Like, you can have a pristine reputation. Like, in 1,000 years, nobody's ever found evidence that you've held back anything.
Not just that, but just I think the sheer volume of what we contribute versus a lot of the other houses.
Mostly because of Uncle Nigel and his walkabouts.
So we like House Oleander for one of your allies?
That's
Yeah,
fine.
that's fine.
Did Oleander have something to do with why your house had this upset election back home?
I'm sure they did.
Are there whispers that they've meddled in things?
I would say there, regardless of whether it's true or not, there would certainly be whispers because people like to talk.
Fair enough.
Also, I think of all the houses we've talked about so far, they're probably the one that have the biggest problem with undead.
Yeah.
So let's put this to... Let's make the... Because there are going to be whispers and rumors. Did it happen?
It did not happen that anybody knows, but our Uncle Nigel has been seen since his poor wife died in the company of some of the more important women with House Oleander.
I would incline to say no. But like, yeah, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that it did happen, but ultimately no.
Okay.
It's just because of night. It's just because
People just got
Nigel's
fed
that.
up. My skeletons are
Right.
breaking down, and the house... House Inmotai people have not been sending around
and like
skeleton maintenance?
And like legitimately, like Nigel is like he's legitimately like this folk hero,
Okay.
like larger than life. Walks in and I muted my speakers. I can't hear. He just walks in and comes in and is like just real loud and awesome and bombastic.
It's
Yeah, well,
possible
not just
then
that.
that's what swayed the election, because electing the governess, knowing that she would select Nigel as speaker, and now this folk hero represents your province in Brennanine.
Yeah,
Right.
that was the main reason. I think one of the other smaller factors was as the church is kind of expanding its power and the empire is expanding, there's worry that the church will start having more influence within the province, and as they have more influence, they might start to come on to this whole undead slavery thing that's been going on in the shadows.
Well, even at the edges of your province, you are still part of the Holy Republic. As far as the entire outside world is concerned, you guys are the Holy Republic. So if there's a country that borders South Warren that sees all this skeleton stuff, possibly they just believe that, oh, that skeleton stuff is just what the church is. That's how much clout you guys have abroad.
Sorry, but I've been losing my shit ever since Brick Road mentioned skeleton maintenance, and my brain is now jumping on like this image of a necromancer in a Maytag, maintenance van outfit.
McDohl's just sitting on his front porch, like impatiently checking his watch. Like, they told me between 2 and 4, and it's 4:15.
My skeleton is just he's in pieces.
He's got little strips of cloth he's reattaching the bones.
I've got dinner guests coming
It's
at
still
5.
covered by warranty.
There's just a leg hopping in circles in the yard. You can't catch it.
They're supposed to rotate the femurs every 30,000 miles. They haven't done it the last 3.
So let's pick one of these other houses to be allies of your own house.
I think the Artificer shipwright house is somebody
Yeah,
mentioned.
the Artificers. You would have a lot of business with them, I'm sure, because we would need stuff like that.
Okay.
We need
So,
a lot of specialty
The
equipment.
house of the gear. This like the Artificers and the shipwrights are the same house.
I think that I think they would be. They would like do things like airships exist?
They're possible to build, but they're not. Like in theory, you could build an airship.
Like not I'm not asking are they like in wide use. Has some like random crackpot decided like to build a balloon or whatever? You know?
Almost certainly, yes.
Yeah, okay. Just put a propeller on the end and flown around like a crazy person on a lawn chair. Remember Lawn Chair Guy?
It's one of my favorite stories. Okay, so some of the other great houses of Brennanine are going to be your enemies just by virtue of they have an alliance with the house that you're supplanting.
Mm-hmm.
People that... And I'm not going to tell you who those are just yet.
Cool.
Well,
You're going to be coming into Brennanine with imperfect information. I think the last thing we kind of have to do communally is determine where in Brennanine your manor is going to be. Or, I guess, Old Dunfoss.
Well, there's a road here called Dead Rabbit Way.
Uh-oh.
Really? Where?
Right here.
Really?
Point it out.
hit
Tab.
the tab key on the.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, mouse over and tab. Okay, I think it's settled.
So you're going to have a house in Dead Rabbit Way. Okay.
Because the only good rabbit's a dead rabbit.
I
Got a
mean,
little plaque with that inscription on the top of the entryway once you come in.
I feel like this is fate.
I mean, the rabbits are a problem.
The rabbits very much are a problem.
I'm thinking the house, one of these houses like down at the end.
Do creatures like, well, I just noticed like Kobold and Goblin Street. Do kobolds and goblins exist?
Mythologically speaking, yes.
Okay.
And there are places in the world where monsters definitely do exist. And some of those monsters would have intelligence and language. But these things are far beyond the purview of your day-to-day responsibilities in Brennanine.
Do we need to point out where the people were supplanting?
No, I'm going to do
Where their house is?
Nope. They have a much nicer house than you do, for sure.
Probably this.
Theirs is the biggest. So I think we've established that your province, like in general, is kind of considered a backwater by civilized folk, because there's all these stories about skeleton slavers, and you're way up past the mountains, and
Rabbits are a problem.
you have these stories about rabbits and whatnot. Some of the provinces are more centrally located. Some of them have greater access to trade and riverfronts, and some of them are oceanside. I've got a list of provinces here that I'm going to plug in, and I'm going to assign some of these to the other great houses in Brennan that you've given me. So all we really need to do now is finish creating your characters.
All right.
So everybody has decided to multi-class out of the noble class.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go over the multi-class rules real quick. They're not super complicated, but
Yeah.
I'm like I said, I'm gonna waive the stat requirements just because I knew you people were going to come out with like 12s and 13s and whatever you got.
God, I wish.
Oh, I have a question
Uh-oh.
about the noble class.
Yeah.
You for the weapon proficiencies, I think Destil suggested 2 instead of just the 1, as you said.
2 simple weapons. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's reasonable.
How married are you to the simple?
Pretty well, because I figure any noble that has greater weapon training than that would have either picked up a skill that gives it to them or gone into a different class.
The thing is that the rogue class does not grant any weapon proficiencies whatsoever if you multi-class into it.
Yeah, it does. It gives you short swords.
Well, the one I looked at didn't give anything, I don't think.
So
I just
if you're still
if you multi-class into rogue, you get light armor, 1 skill from the class's skill list, and thieves' tools.
okay. I thought it was.
if you're still interested in doing whips, I would say either take the feeder. Probably actually a lot better to take a level of fighter first. You've got 2 levels to work with.
I mean, I was going to settle for rapier.
Yeah. At this point, if we just we've already multi-classed once, we might as well just each take 1 level of every class.
1 level fighter is actually pretty good for a melee rogue.
So your character is going to have a class level, but then you're also going to have a total class, which is all of your class levels added together. You're starting with a character level of 3, and it sounds like everybody's going to be level 1 noble, level 2 something else.
Mm-hmm.
When you determine your proficiency bonus, you always use your character level, no matter how many levels you have in each class.
Mm-hmm.
Hit dice are granted per level. So every time you take a level, you just take whatever hit die that class gives you. And you actually get different hit dice if you have 2 classes with different hit dice, don't you, to spend?
Yeah, you'd have for instance, do I have an 8?
Yeah.
An 8 for a cleric. So yeah, I've got 1d6 and 2d8.
Okay. So your noble hit die is a d6. That's what I gave you guys, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you go to fill in your hit dice, this is what you spend on a short or a long rest to regain hit points. You'll have, anytime you gain a level in noble, you get another d6. Anytime you gain any other level, you gain whatever their hit dice is. Your proficiency bonus by your character level. Yeah, there is a table that says multi-classing proficiencies. It tells you what you get when you multi-class.
Except Artificer, I'm trying to find that. That's in Tasha's probably.
Oh, it must be.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
I don't think the class feature stuff is actually going to matter that much because the noble class doesn't have any overlap with extra attack or spellcasting, but it does have the house spellcasting feature, which is a little different. So you have where it says multi-class spellcaster, spell slots by level. This is the table you're going to use if you choose to multi-class into something like Cleric or Wizard. Is that correct?
You can basically just use the cleric or wizard. Unless you multi-class between those, you don't need that table.
Correct. Okay. So you guys are going to have
and the
house
thing with
spellcasting.
how spellcasting works, just like pact magic, you said?
Yes. So yeah, if you multi-class into wizard, you use the wizard spellcasting table, but you'll also have some number of house spell slots to use, just like a warlock would.
So can we use that house? Is that because I think if you have pact magic, you can cast any spell you know with those slots. It doesn't have to be on the warlock spell list. Can we use our house?
Yes, if you have pact magic and spellcasting together, you can use one of the slots to cast another one. The difference is that a standard spellcasting table, like a wizard or cleric you have X number of slots per level, whereas pact magic and house spellcasting, you always cast your spell at the highest level, and you only have a certain number of slots.
And also the spells prepared and known are completely cross-compatible between pact magic and spellcasting.
I don't know what that means.
Well,
So that means as a level 1 cleric, I can effectively treat the house magic spells at level 1 as if they're on my spell list.
yes.
For a cleric preparation and casting. And I can likewise use my house slot to cast one of my cleric spells.
Yes, that is the intent. I wanted to make it as close to pact magic as possible because those are rules we've already used and we already know pretty well.
All right, so we have a cleric and a monk.
Oh, I guess there is one thing, is that pact magic, you know spells versus having a class list. Does that mean those are effectively prepared?
Your house spells are your spells known and your spells prepared because you don't have a class spell list. It's just.
Does that mean when I get third level cleric and have second level spells, I can cast the second level house magic spells?
Yeah, because you could cast your house spell using the higher.
Yeah,
level
no, it's
spell.
just for a warlock, you'd actually have to add them to your known list, so it is a little different.
No, I'm fine with that. That's.
Yeah, okay.
Because the noble has the drawback in that they don't have a spell list to draw from. They only have the house spells. Whereas a warlock would have their big warlock lists.
So is what you're saying is as soon as if I were a bard and I got the ability to cast third level spells, I'd be able to cast tongues without the prerequisite level of.
No, because you're still a level 1 noble, which means you're limited to the level 1 noble spells from your house
Gotcha.
list.
That's
But
what
you can cast that level 1 spell using a level 3 slot as a level 3 spell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I understood what you were asking, Destil, and I was.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I
think
misunderstood what you were
misinterpreted until that example. That makes perfect sense because of the spell level.
Yeah, if you want access to the level 3 house spells, you have to take enough levels in noble to get that high.
Yeah. Okay.
This was the rule that I misunderstood, which led to everybody casting Foresight in the first campaign.
I think it was more one person casting Foresight a lot. 2 people casting Foresight a lot.
Foresight is so good.
So we have a.
So who's who's our cleric? Destil, you're playing a cleric.
I am going to play a laser cleric.
A laser cleric?
Yeah.
So
Is that not a thing in 5e?
the question is, does your character have actual standing in the church? Would people refer to him by the title Aethar?
Yes.
Okay.
And is there a division of the church that specifically deals with heretics primarily?
There's lots of divisions in the church.
Okay, that's what he's a member of.
Peace domain?
What?
Is that the peace domain?
No, it's a
Or
light
heretics?
domain. I'm fucking lasering people.
So you've decided, okay, clerics pick their subclass at level 1. Okay.
Yeah. Or maybe level 2. No, it's level 1, yeah.
Is your character pursuing a career in the church? Like, is he going to consider that his...
Yeah, that might be some of the schism he's had with his family. His family thinks he should keep working within the purview of the family, and he thinks that the church is a higher calling.
Okay. Has anybody else decided on their second class yet?
I think mine's going to be a rogue.
It's pronounced Rogu.
Okay, yeah, it's actually going to be a rouge.
A Rouge.
If you're going to play the Rouge, I recommend the Smoky Scarlet subclass. It really sets off your eyes.
I was going to go for the ruby.
Okay, so Because I was planning on being kind of I was planning on picking the stealth monk,
Oh, trust me, there's always room for more
the shadow
stealth
monk.
because
The
there's
Shadow
nothing.
Monk is really good, and I'm surprised we haven't seen one yet. I think that's the best monk so far.
I was
I
thinking
think
about
we're
doing
going to
one.
see one this time around.
I think if my Rouge dies, I'll end up doing a Shadow Monk.
So we have the cleric, the monk, and the rouge.
You have any idea what kind of rouge you want to be?
I was initially going to go with Inquisitive, but I'm thinking I might actually do Phantom.
Which is that a Tasha's?
The Phantom might be in Tasha's, yeah.
I
That's
think
the
one of my
one.
friends played one of those.
It's the one that talks to dead people.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do we do for languages, Brick? I think I've got 3 language slots after common.
So each country in the world is going to have its own language, but there's going to be a common Aetherine trade tongue, which is effectively common.
Okay.
That's the one you'll all speak by default. If you're granted extra languages, typically people in the Holy Republic or its closest neighbors would treat the study of languages for historical curiosity. There's a lot of dead languages with a lot of civilizations. I've established a couple of faraway cultures that we probably will never travel to, but there are other countries in the world that would speak something different. Essentially, we're just going to invent languages as we go. We'll just decide if each one is an old dead tongue that you've decided you wanted to learn for historical curiosity, or if it's learning the tongue of some faraway culture. It's up to you.
So you're saying hold them in reserve and decide at the like we did with Flumph of the Wild?
You can if you want.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just do that for now.
I mean,
Yeah. So,
comprehend language is your guys one of your level 1 spells, is it not?
Yeah.
that's true, yeah.
Probably for the best. But yeah, stuff like Elvish and Dwarvish, those are languages that exist in the world, and they're strongly considered to actually be spoken by elves and dwarves at some point. But it'd be the equivalent of somebody learning ancient Egyptian. There might also be a lot of scholastic debate about how it's actually spoken, because who's ever actually heard ancient Egyptian spoken before?
I mean, if we run
Is there
the
any
Stargate, that's a thing that might be helpful.
Right.
Is there any particular language that a member of the church would have learned as part of their scholarship?
We could say there's an old Aetherine tongue.
That works. I'll take that as one of mine.
Which
I know.
would kind of be the equivalent of Latin.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. For mine, it would be whatever the most common tongue found on old dead ruins and stuff was.
So probably Elvish or Dwarvish. Probably Dwarvish, given your guys' province being mountains. So let's say that part of why the schism happened in the Aetherine Church years ago was that commons were falling out of context because it was used to be holy law that mass be given in the old Aetherine tongue that nobody spoke anymore. And it's one of the new reforms when the church was reborn in Brennanine. So it's still there, but it's not necessarily, you would not give mass in old Aetherine. Once a week, they give a mass for... So yeah, functionally...
Ekon always goes to that one. Without fail.
Very good. Is this rogue? Are you actually going to be a thief or criminal type in your family?
It's more to help acquire the necessary artifacts.
So
Or-
call
or-
you a treasure hunter.
Yeah, your lock.
Sometimes the wrong people have the right artifacts, you gotta take them back.
So one of the things in this world is there are other unofficial branches of the church, especially the further away you get from the Holy Republic, the more and more you're likely to run into weird offshoot cults and things. And a lot of these would be monasteries way out on the fringes that are held in respect and in good standing with local cultures, but would officially be at odds with the church. So for our monk, you kind of have that decision on whether you want to be associated with one of these monasteries or not. Are you bringing strange foreign concepts and different takes on the religion when you come to Brennanine? Or are you an Aetherian in good standing? Like, you could just like to meditate and learn the martial arts. And you might be muted.
No, I was like considering what, like I was originally my thought was, I'm Destil's brother, but I was like hey, go follow him and don't make sure he doesn't blaspheme or whatever. That doesn't sound like to happen. So I might have to revise that a bit.
Could be the other way around.